Yes.
Okay, should I start it? I share the screen. Actually, first, welcome everyone. This is an internal remedy TAUW workshop. It's called TSTC5, which is Transferable Skills and Training Course number 5 of the Remedy project, which is a European project of which TAUW, University of Warwick, and Polytechnic of Milan are all beneficiaries. The aim of this course is to touch upon the topics of entrepreneurship for primarily young researchers and academics, but it can also be extended to outside the realm of academia and be useful for whomever is interested in starting with adding some concepts of entrepreneurship into their work. Our hosts today are going to be primarily Sajjad Mohammadian from TAUW. I'm sure many of you using this eventually through TAUW University or other means will know already. And myself, Stefano Seccia from Remedy, also part of TAUW. Actually, I should probably share the screen from the start, like this. Yes. And Patrick Jacobs won't be able to make it today, but he has also helped in organizing this workshop, as well as Britta, as many of you might know already. Just a few quick words of introduction before I leave the screen to Sajjad. This is an overview of what the course will be like. It will be a relatively long workshop made of a few sections. We will start from apart from Sajjad, who will touch upon the whole topic of from research to entrepreneurship. If I understand correctly from your slides, Sajjad, you were going to talk about a bit of verbal business card and pitching and elevator pitches, for example, so how to communicate outside of academia. The entrepreneurial and innovative part of technology transfer, so from going to an academic PhD work to something that can actually apply in industry, and many more topics. So let's say a summary, an executive summary of everything we're going to be talking about. Afterwards, after a quick Q&A exercise and a break, we're going to be focusing a little more deeply on 3 specific topics that, based on a survey a while ago that was sent to the ESRs of Remedy, were of most interest. And so they're going to be delved into a little more deeply. Intellectual property rights, particularly focusing on impact for researchers and patents. Secondly, entrepreneurship for researchers. So some of the main topics on problem definition. So what problem the research is actually solving, idea validation, how to validate the assumptions that support this question, and minimum viable product or MVP. Lastly, we're going to be touching on to pitching and public speaking. So quick overview of what a Bernard business card is and how to create a pitch deck, and some advice also on communication from Britta. That's a quick overview. There's going to be breaks in between. There's going to be exercise and Q&A. So I leave and there's going to be several different recordings. So I stop sharing the screen, Sajjad, and I leave it to you with the first part of the TSTC5 workshop.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was muted. Thanks for the introduction. And do you see my screen? Is it visible for you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. So the title is a little bit outreach. We're not going to reach really to the technology transfer as it's probably things, but I try to at least touch some bases, define something, and especially mention some of the lessons learned and mistakes I made in the past when I went through this road. I'll make an introduction and introduce myself in a couple of slides, but just the aim today is try to reshape the thinking a little bit, or try to at least see what are the necessary steps that we have when somebody wants to leave this research, not leave, transfer this research to a technology, to a business, what kind of a first step has to be taken? Just to touch some bases, and of course, we don't have the time to go through all the details here. So the first question is that what we are actually really doing here. What is our work, what we are doing, and how we introduce ourselves, how we introduce our ideas, our businesses, our products itself. And the concept you will have, as Stefano mentioned, you will have a separate presentation or separate session completely about pitching, how you pitch your ideas and information. But maybe you already heard the concept of elevator pitch. I know some startup business, some investing business really doing this elevator pitch. And the idea is that if you get an investor for 30 seconds, for example, within the elevator travel from the below to top or bottom, how you within the short time can introduce it. And that means bring everything, your ideas to impress someone that your business may depend on to invest in you, how you do that. And of course, there are different pitches where slide decks, etc. But we try to do very beginning, do an elevator pitch ourselves. In this slide, you see what is really in actual kind of the optimum scenario, optimum recipe for an elevator pitch. Introducing yourself, your products, and clarify what are your customers, what kind of a problem you try to solve, and how that make an impact in terms of improving something, what kind of benefit has. And not necessarily, I put it as a cheating point here, not necessarily go to details of how you're doing that. If they become interested, they will ask about it. And then something not only for the elevator pitch, but for all the pitching, when you present yourself, it is call to action. You might come say, hey, I'm this and that, doing this and that, very good. And if you don't ask them to do something for you, everything is finished. Also, maybe in your scientific presentations, when you do some in conference, try to have a call to action at the end of the presentation. And that's something that many people miss. This is something that I learned hard way. We go out, made a presentation, made a nice pitch, everybody was happy, and really we didn't ask them to do anything. Contact us. Do you have a problem? Do you have a client? What part of my presentation impressed you? Try to engage them. That engagement is important. Today we do it a little bit different. And this is again another point, audience based. When we present something, I used to have one big presentation of my PhD thesis and I use it everywhere. That's not good because the audience are different. You have to adapt to the audience as well. And today we are in a small group. I think you know yourself a little bit as an audience, and we try to do that for ourselves as a kind of introduction. Who are you? What do you do? And what you really want to take away today. So I started myself. My name is Sajjad. I work at TAUW since 2 years ago. Before that, I was a researcher for 7 years after my PhD. 4 to 5 years did also startup, have my own startup, try to grow. And what I'm trying to do today is try to at least tell you a little bit of the story that I went through, especially the lesson learned from the mistakes, how we have to adapt, how we have to improve ourselves. And by the end of the day, I hope that I could see that difference in your elevator pitch that you are going to start now. So maybe Stefano, you want to start? Tell me.
I don't, but I will. Oh, thank you, Sajjad. Yes, I am Stefano. I am a PhD researcher as part of a European project on environmental engineering. And let's say my mission is to mitigate the impact of a specific type of pharmaceutical iodinated contrast media, find solutions that are applicable to mitigate this issue. And what would I like to do today? Today, I would like to listen and learn what are some of the things that I might be missing when I am developing an idea from an academic standpoint.
Thanks. Then I go with my slide. Negar, you next.
Okay, I'm Negar Razavi. I'm a PhD researcher. I'm working in the field of I'm using the microfluidic and computational fluid dynamic to investigate the multi-scale fluid-solid interaction and their implication in the environmental remediation. The focus is in mitigating the impact of pharmaceutical contamination in water resources. Today, I want to listen and learn about how we can translate our ideas into some practical approaches for environmental water remediation. And I would like to learn more about the industry part, because I've been a researcher and less learned about the what would be the interest of industry partners.
Thanks. Ashwin?
Thank you so much. My name is Ashwin. I serve as ESR number 5 in the REMEDI project. My research deals with the remediation of the trapping and recycling of these pharmaceutical components, and I try different geomaterials, and I also study various water quality in different hydrological settings to see how the technology can be realistically applied in the natural environment. So the thing I want to learn really is that in context of environmental consultancies like TAUW, what are the sort of like the key highlights that are currently going in the market, and what are the major requirements that right now, particularly in European settings, that are sort of, you have major clients in and these kind of things.
Thanks. Milad?
Yeah, so I'm Milad. I'm a PhD candidate. I have work experience both in academia and also industry. And my main reason here is because I'm focused in applying machine learning in environmental science applications. My main goal here is to see how I can attract the attention and persuade people, especially from industrial partners that are working in environmental consultancy firms, attract them to use machine learning in their kind of problems.
Okay, thanks. Very nice for all of you. But the next question is, why should I or anybody care what you do and what your topic is? And I've been through this. It's difficult to do a PhD. It's really great that you're doing it. We need that. You're moving science boundaries. Everybody does something new. And of course, everybody's proud of your family, of course, but what we really do during a PhD or a research is just a bump into whole science. This is a picture, maybe you already know that. You with your higher school or a bachelor, you get a little bit core of the whole science. With a master, you try to orient into some corner of that. You have a specific topic, and then you go through that with your PhD that is very specific to really narrow people, number of the people know that your topic. And when you write your dissertation, you're really making a small bump in the whole world. And the question is that what does it have to do with the rest of the world? And that is something that is the kind of the most challenging thing when we come from the academic background, from research background, how we implement that into the reality of the system. This is very important, the first line. It's really ultimately about solving a problem. All of you are solving one problem, one aspect of some problem. And that's very important. But the largest risk is that making something that is really nobody wants, doesn't make a real impact in a bigger scale. And that's why this two-line is actually kind of tell the whole story. We have to start from the problem. We have to start and fall in love, so-called, with the problem and not with that what we are doing as a solution first. The typical way that we develop a product, we do our research, we do our PhD, it's a good idea, either machine learning or a new adsorbent or a new software, and then we try to find a problem, trying to find a fit for that product that we have and sell it to the customer. And that's really the way that most of the researchers are starting with. They take what they have done during the research and try to find a problem with it. And the problem is the bottleneck is that first you don't have a real problem with a real impact in the world, and even there is a lot of solutions out there. And there are a lot of competition out there. You're not the only person who works on the developing a new adsorber or try to understand or developing a new software for the environmental sciences, etc., etc. There are people doing it faster. There are people doing it, have something that they try to adapt that so that they move not vertically, rather horizontally, adapting some already available product. In US, we have a bigger market, therefore there's also bigger demand, which accelerate these things, the cost of impact, etc., etc., etc. And the whole idea is that we try, at least within our head, to shift that, thinking about the product that we're developing in PhD, and then finding a customer, rather focus on the other side as well. Try to understand who is the customer, what kind of problem they have, and how that basic knowledge and how that improved knowledge that you're doing during your PhD, how that can solve their problem. And you design a product, or your product you do can be adapted to that. And that's why, coming back here, we have to start with the customer. We have to start with the client and see who is buying you. The bottom line here is that there's something that is specific, at least not specific to my case or our case here. There's something sometimes happens. Sometimes your client is not the end user of that. And this is something that I also, for the consulting world, works, but I use a very simpler example, is that imagine you work in a bioscience and you develop a new drug. You don't go door to door, knocking on the door and try to sell drug to the people. You actually go to some doctor, some kind of organization like doctor who are in the middle of you and the patient, and try to present your product to them. So the end user is still the patient, but your client is going to be a doctor or a pharmacy who take the product from you and sell it to the patient. So that's sometimes it's very important, because when you develop a drug, you're already thinking about the patient and the pain they have. But in a business model, your client is not the end user here. And I learned that in a hard way myself, because in our startup, we were developing something like this. We were developing a remediation technology. And for a very long time, we were really in a search of the end customer, industry owner, problem owners, etc. While our real client, for example, was somebody like a consulting company who could add our product to their portfolio. And this is one of the very good example is try to create client persona, who is buying from you, and try to really think about them, try to put yourself in their place. And when I say in their place, is really in their place. Think about their life, what are the personal life would look like, and what are the professional life would look like. What they do, what are their client, what are their ambition, what they want, what they are looking for, what pains them, what makes them happy, etc. We did that exercise as I said, first wrongly with the end customer, but also secondly with the consulting. And we really use one of the former TAUW client, the TAUW consultant, Stefan Wagner. Maybe some of you already know or saw his name, Stefan Markwurst, because we had contact with him and we tried to set together and think about his life. We assume, for example, he has 2 kids living in a nearby Köln, so that person, we have to make that also personal aspect of his life and then think about him. What does he do? He has clients, he's looking for a solution for them. He has already some solution in hand, but also might looking for something new. What actually makes him pain? Maybe when he doesn't offer a good solution for the client, clients always complain that it's very expensive, etc., etc. So that exercise is very important for when you do a new software or a new code or a new machine learning algorithm. Try to think who's buying that and try to put that also on a paper, really what that person looked like. And that's a very good example, that's a very good exercise after when you do it later on. You think that you probably need a lot of more time to think, to put yourself in the place of that person. And then they always, one of the biggest challenges is that when you do that exercise, they ask, why should I bother? Because there is always a solution available. They always have something in hand. It's not that if the industrial site have a contaminant, they are desperate to find a solution to remediate that. To be honest, most of them don't want to spend a penny on anything. Or either they have a, let's say, pump and treat system, clean up, extracting the water, running it through activated carbon, etc. So they will ask, I have a solution, why should I adapt? Why should I change? And if I do have to change, I do need to change, what is your difference from the others? How do you stay and make yourself separate from the other solution on the market? Think about that when you try to present your product about to someone else. Why? If I have, let's say, a numerical simulator for groundwater and mass transfer flow, why should I adapt to your product? Why should I be, why do I need to incorporate, for example, machine learning into that? So if it works for me, then what should I adapt? And that's bring us to the next point. You should look for the pain. You should really look see what they actually bothers those clients. And we do a little bit exercise, not that you do it, it's coming from the same concept. We call it the mom test. What does the mom test means? That if your mom understands what your product is, and if you can sell it to your mother, you have a chance. You please try again when you go back home and try to explain that to your family. What do you do? And here I open a parenthesis. Remind me later on, maybe during the pitch or something, to talk to you about the grandmother rule of the presentation. That's something else. But close parenthesis, coming back to our position. If you try to sell it to a loved one, a close one, you have a chance. But there is also a problem. Everybody lies. Not also the clients, not also everybody in the market, but also your mother. So, and this is really a book. I have the book. If you want, I can share it with you. It's called the Mom Test. I think I have it also as a PDF on my computers somewhere. And the basic idea, the book's written for the people who sell in the startup business. So they are for the salespeople, but there are some concepts that actually look for work for the technology developer as well. And the idea is, imagine you build a new app and you wanted to sell it to your mom. So there's a conversation between you and the mom. You write down, hey mom, I have a business idea. May I run it by you? And she says, of course. She's happy for you. And you ask, you have an iPad. Do you like your iPad? You use it a lot? And she says, it's great. Said, so would you buy an app which like a cookbook on your iPad? I said, and then you say, it only costs $40. It's cheaper than those books you use and you put it on your shelf. And she says, okay, yeah, of course, I love cookbooks. I love to cook something, maybe something for Christmas, etc., etc. In the reality behind that is something else going on in the head of your mom. When you ask that, how do you like your iPad? She's really saying, I only maybe check some videos or read some emails, etc. on it, or maybe use a cutting board. There's a nice video about that. So, and when you say you bring your great idea to her, she's actually thinking, yeah, I have already a lot of cookbooks and I don't need a computer in my kitchen. And app's supposed to cost $1. Well, what's $40 here? So even the closest person when it comes to business could be a little bit difficult. So I think I hope you could get the basic idea behind that you have a product, you fall in love with your product, and you try to sell it to somebody who really doesn't have a problem. And that's why in that persona type, not only try to put yourself into that, when you try to gather information, try to also gather information through the question. And in such conversation here, I put some slides, some examples, what could be a good question and what could be a bad question. Do you think a good idea? It's never a good question. I put it in the red, so it's clear that is not a good question here. Would you buy a product which solves this problem? That doesn't bring you any information. They might say no. They might say I have already a solution, as I mentioned before. How do you currently deal with problem? That's a very good question because you gather the information about what they are actually doing and try to see where you can improve. Talk me through the last time you had this problem. This is also a next step of the last question because it's also define every step that person's going through and try to really may help you make to understand where the pains and where the bottleneck for that person could be. How much do you pay for this? It's a good question, but not really good one. A better question is that is there really budget for it? That means they actually try to invest something in that. Try to invest, try to improve. And who else I should talk to? That's also very important when you develop business because with your idea, you might not be speaking to the right person, the person who has the power to make the decision, who has the power to understand that. And that's also a very good question, a very good point that when you go outside and talk to people, always try to find out within that organization who's making the decision, because that person could be the case that is not really the one that actually you need to talk to in the next steps. So that's just a gatekeeper, and you have to ask. Just a little bit next step to the book, and the summary is that try to look for the cues. Try to look what the frustration of that people are, what excited people, and the things they care about in their daily life. And try to gather information about the problem, how often that happens, where are the bottlenecks, how they deal with it now, and those kind of information about the problem. So shift the mindset from yourself to the other one. And I use that quote that I took from the presentation that Stefano sent me before. People don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill or drilling machine. What they really want, they want to have within their wall a 1/4-inch hole. They might get it with a hammer, so they never gonna buy with a hammer and nail, and they never gonna come and buy your drilling machine. So that's a very important thing to take into mind. Try to think what they want, what are their goals, if there is an alternative solution, and how you can improve that. And we come back to the point that impact, benefits, and other aspects are discussed, and the way that we eventually come to the value proposition, which I think Stefano later on will discuss more about it. A couple of slides from a different startups that have worked out. This was from the company called Hydrogen Leaves, and they created membranes that did not contain palladium. And this is a graph that shows, for example, how much they could reduce this footprint of this component. Another startup showed the impact in terms of the environmental footprint, how much CO2 you could save, how much recycled material are used, etc., etc. These are impacts, but the impacts are a little bit different from the benefits. Impacts are much larger scale, going to the wider audience, wider public, and usually you see them after a much longer time scales. Benefits are what really directly associated with the problem owner. It's about their cost, about their risk, and it's usually also something measurable. That rather than having this long-term overview from the impact. And you can see that usually in the short or mid-terms, and you don't have to wait for a longer time to see that impact. And another different aspect about the benefits is that they're also different from features. Features belongs to your product. Benefits are what actually added value to your client is. So you might have a software and you have a feature that activated, let's say, machine learning to improve quantification times or improve the accuracy, etc. But that's a feature of your product. What that benefits your client is, let's say, more safety or more targeted to their specific case, for example. So that's also the graphic here is a very good one. I borrow it from the other presentation from Stefano, and this is also shows what actually the definition is. An umbrella, you could have a different feature about it, what kind of materials it's used, etc., etc. But the real benefit of an umbrella is that it saves you from getting wet in a rainy season. And feature, as I said, they tell something about the product and not about the impact of that product. And that's what we call eventually come back to the value proposition. Value proposition is usually a statement which actually bring the core of your product, but not in the terms of its feature, rather in the term of the benefit and impact that product makes. And it's also diverted not about you, it's about the clients. So that's the difference between a value proposition and a feature description. Let's put it this way. It's not about the solution, it's not about who you are, rather it's about what kind of impact, what kind of a benefit eventually had for your client. And for a good example, you go to on TAUW website and look at the proposition that we have on a TAUW website. You see that's our look like a very general term, but they are directly to our client group and to what we aim for in that sense. And my kind of last thing is that take that bottom line in head, try to think about the client or problem owner first before thinking about the product. And it's very important because you guys are scientists. You work with the data, you gather your experiments, and you learn and improve. So do that. We will go through this the circle a lot of times, always improve, to try to gather information, make an assumption, test that assumption, see if it works, accept the results, come back and try to improve and do that again and again. You have to start from what you have in hand as your product, but to make it toward some kind of business, we have to get out of this researcher problem, try to fit the product into the market rather than try to see what the market, what the client wants, and design something for that solution. And one thing that I found out also, for me at least, was very important. There are a lot of tools out there. Try to use them. Don't overdo it, but the tools really help us to structure our thinking. There are pitch decks, which we'll have go through it later on. I put one of the accelerators I attended. I put our pitch deck format here in the left. You see, they told us do it in maximum 9 slides. Try about your title, your products, your client, why they buy it, what kind of impact, etc., etc. And they told us also try to make 3 additional exercises for yourself. What kind of assumption you made, how do you make your experiments, and what are your internal milestones. And this is always a try and error system, iteration, and you will improve that. Another thing is the business canvas you see on the right. This is also try to think about what is outside of the world, not only your product, but also who could be your partner, what kind of resources you could use, who is your client. Of course, the channels are important, how you reach the client, and what would be eventually your cost, how you make money, what would be, for example, your profit margin, etc., etc. This comes later on that. Try to use those tools because it helps you, again, to use the knowledge that already exists and try to structurize that a lot of ideas, a lot of questions. And every time we did the business canvas, we made a very improvement because we realized that, for example, we had a channel wrong. We had to work on a different channels to reach the client. We focus on the wrong pains of the client. The client doesn't want to remediate. They just want to reduce the cost and fines, for example. So how to approach that pain, etc., etc. And now we come back to what we did at the beginning. I hope that now our small elevator pitch is a little bit different. And I think the exercise would be maybe take a few minutes, try to restructure it. There was a lot of information I put on the slides, and try to redo the introduction that we did at the beginning. And I hope I could see a little bit the difference here, at least not that the first one was not good. That's a little bit now adapted in a way that, let's try that what you're doing in your PC, you want to sell it, try to sell it to the investor, or try to explain it to someone that might actually be interested in using it in a business world. So let's say take a couple of minutes, try to rethink a lot of things that was on the slides, and see if we do elevator pitch again.
Thank you, Sajjad. If you believe it's the correct thing, I would stop this recording here.
Yep.
And then we do the exercise, and then we'll start with the next ones afterwards.
Yep.
So
yeah, fine with me.
Close this recording.